Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Jason Purrier. Uh, this is going to be a working session, so there's no formal presentation this evening, but the goal is to make progress on the 2024-2025 FAFSA form. So that's what we're here to do. I'll share my screen briefly to make sure everybody is starting off on the correct website. And then as you all get logged in using your FSA IDs to start working through your FAFSAs, I'll note some issues that students and families have been seeing as they've been working on their FAFSAs during the soft launch. We're still within the soft launch period itself. So if you find yourself stuck at any point within your FAFSA form, either drop in the chat box a message to us so we can see what's going on and hopefully answer your question. You can also unmute yourself if you feel comfortable doing so. Although if you're speaking a language other than English, let your interpreter know, and they'll be dropping the message into the chat box on your behalf to help us get your questions answered. But other than that, we've got about an hour where we'll be working together through these forms. So there'll be a lot of quiet time. So if that makes you feel uncomfortable, play some music on your end on the background, and or have some conversations with a parent for the students who have parents that are there with you working on the form. But this is meant to simply be a working session, just in case anybody who's coming in expecting a more formal presentation. That is not the session for this evening. So to begin, try to get this pulled up. I'm going to share my screen. And so this is the site you should be on, studentaid.gov, as you begin the process of working on your FAFSA. And just a point of clarification, make sure that you're accessing the 2024-25 FAFSA form every time you log in to complete your FAFSA, which you should do every year that you're enrolling in higher or post-secondary education. You'll have two FAFSA forms that are available to you at any given time, typically speaking. So don't do 23-24. That's for the current academic year. It's the 24-25 FAFSA. You'll just click to start on the new form here. And that's where you'll get started using your FSA ID to log in. What will you need to complete your FAFSA? For the students, if you're filling out your FAFSA without your parents or other contributors around you, you'll need their social security numbers, their birth date, a good email address for them. If your parents don't have social security numbers, don't worry about that part. There is a process for them to get their own FSA ID if they have not already done so. But that will take some time. It takes, well, actually, for your parent, as soon without the social security number, as soon as they log in to create their FSA ID, instead of the 6 steps that you saw in creating your FSA ID, they'll have 7 technically, which is where the background check will happen to verify their identity. The process could take a little bit longer if they don't answer the 1 to 4 questions that they'll see within FSA ID creation at that point. And another note, if you have not created your FSA ID yet, technically you can do that. You can start that process tonight. Unfortunately, you will not be able to work through your FAFSA because it takes approximately 3 business days for the Social Security Administration to verify your identity and to approve your FSA ID to be able to move forward to log into the FAFSA form. Stop sharing now. So as you all get logged in, please let me know if you have any questions. You'll use your FSA ID, and I'll just throw that into the chat box. You'll also have the ability to use your email address to log in. There's a few different ways you can log into the form, but I recommend using your FSA ID.
Quick question. Could you put the website URL in the chat, please?
Absolutely.
Hi, I do have a quick question,
Sure.
Jason. That's regarding the students. As you mentioned that their parents should be also registering for that one, right?
Parent or contributor. So
Okay.
that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that because the parent slash other contributors for the FAFSA form will be identified as the student works through their FAFSA. So not every parent will need an FSA ID, but both parents could need one. So it depends on the family's filing status. If the parents are married and it's biological parents that are married and they've never been separated, and well, technically at least within the last 2 years, and they're filing joint tax returns, then the student will only be identifying one of them as a contributor. Both parents will be listed on the FAFSA form itself, but only one will be identified as needing to have their own FSA ID and provide that consent and approval on the FAFSA form itself. It's a great question.
Yeah. Why I asked this one? Because I already filled the form for Hina Rahimi. And the question is here that I got the notification that the FAFSA has been submitted on behalf of her. She completed, but I was with her. And now when I have to put all my details there, right? The question is here, when I click on the link, it doesn't give me any option. Do I need to create my account there? Because I don't think so that should work like that.
Did you already input information into
No,
the FAFSA?
no, that's I'm waiting. I received the confirmation email and I have to click on that link and it says like I have to create an account then.
So you don't already have your FSA ID?
I do not.
Okay, yep, that's where you have to start. You have to create that FSA ID, and from here it'll take about 3 business days at most for that information to get approved.
Yeah, I hope that the FAFSA will not say, okay, I'm not studying. My daughter's studying. That's why, you know. Okay, okay, thank you.
No problem.
I have a question, sir.
Sure. I'm not sure who's asking that.
Yeah, sure. My name is Vishesh Mathur.
Okay.
Yeah. So my daughter listed me, for FAFSA. I created my ID. I went in, provided my tax information, the 2022 tax information. Does my spouse, and we had filed joint taxes, does she need to fill out FAFSA as well, or because it did ask for her information and asked me to send her an email ID, send her a link. So I did, but does she need to create her own ID as well, or just like you said, just one parent is good enough? Because again, it was a joint filing, so the amount that we put in would be the same information that she'd be giving in.
As long as y'all were married for the entire year?
Yeah.
Yes. It should just be one of you that's being asked for.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Even though both of you would be listed on the FAFSA. That's correct.
Okay. So she does not need to create a separate ID of her own right now.
Because only one of you. So what's the reason that the individual FSA ID would be needed is if parents were married filing separately, because each individual has to consent for their federal tax information to be shared into the FAFSA form. For a married joint filing couple, just one parent or / contributor needs to share at that point.
Okay, thank you.
And Matthew and Brittany have had their hands up for a little bit, so I'm going to go to Matthew first and then Brittany.
Yeah, one quick question. I filled out my daughter's FAFSA, but I forgot to add, well, I don't even know if I need to add her 529 information. If so, how do I go back and redo it because I've already submitted it?
The question is, who is the 529 account's name in? Is it in her name? Is it a grandparent's name?
Her dad got it for, we're not married. Her dad got it for a long time ago. I don't know if I need to add that
let us know
to her account. I don't even know how.
Okay. I ask her dad if she's named as a benefit. Is she named as
she's named on it.
Okay.
The two of them are on it. Yes.
Okay. And he's non-custodial?
No.
Okay. Are you remarried?
No.
Okay. And so she reported his information on the FAFSA, or you added it in terms of the parental information, correct?
I have primary custody of her. So I did everything, but this is something that he did a long time ago when she was first born. So I don't know if I was supposed to add that as her income or my income.
No, it's and that's a great question because it's changed in the last 2 years where the 529 information is being reported. So it should be listed under income and assets, but that's for a non-custodial parent if the information is being requested, which in this situation It should be. So if you listed his information, your information on her FAFSA, that y'all were separated or not married, he should be getting a prompt to sign up for an FSA ID. Do you know if he's received that information?
I don't know. She filled out the information. She started the FAFSA form. I had gotten an email, something to put my information on there. I don't know if he got anything or not.
Ask your daughter, because once she submits her portion of the FAFSA, she'll essentially have a running dashboard to see which contributor or contributors have done what. So if her dad was identified as needing to also contribute to her FAFSA form, she can see if he's created an FSA ID, if he's logged into the account, if he started working on the FAFSA. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see much from your end about what's going on with the FAFSA form, especially once you submit your information. It's all your daughter will be able to see a lot more at that point.
Okay, so if there is an error made on the FAFSA, is there a way to go correct it?
Absolutely. Right now, during the soft launch, no. But once the soft launch period ends and the FAFSAs are processed, that'll be towards the middle to end of this month, depending on when the soft launch period actually ends and they start processing the forms. You'll be able to log back in at that point, make corrections, and then resubmit the FAFSA processing.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
And then I'll go Brittany, and I'm reading through the chats to try to keep up. I know there are a lot of questions coming in.
Hey, good evening. I have a quick question. So I was asking my son, did he start the process? And he said no, and I'm hearing you say a lot that we have to have that ID established first. So I noticed this is being recorded. Is this going to be shared with the attendees so that we can go back and walk through it once we get the IDs and stuff? Because I don't have one yet, but y'all are having great discussion. But I I want to be able to do what needs to be done too on my end. And I don't know if it's going to ask me or my husband, because I think you brought up a category of married filing separately, and there's two different IDs, and I'm just trying to figure out things because this is my first child going to college, so I'm just trying to figure it out.
Well, we appreciate you being here. I'm going to turn that over to the Prince William County staff to answer that question.
So the chat, go ahead, Ms. Shaver.
No, what was the question?
So the question was, I noticed a lot of people are saying they don't have. No, I noticed a lot of people are saying they don't have the IDs yet. And so I noticed that this is being recorded. So I was just asking, is this going to be shared with the people that register so we can go back and watch the video when we establish an ID? That's all I was trying to clarify.
Yes, this will be available for those who have registered. The link will get sent out, and then you will be able to utilize this. Also wanting to share that at our high schools, and we're showing right now, there will be hands-on sessions as well. We have dates listed on our College and Career Readiness website. We'll drop the link into the chat so that you will also have another opportunity not only to view this video and recording, but also to be able to talk directly with those individuals at your school that are hosting sessions to help support you in filling out this FAFSA application.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'm sorry, you were saying earlier, if you're married and you file separately, you might be potentially asked for 2 FSA IDs, or will it normally send that to both parents, or just the parent that feels like it needs to fill it out?
That's a great question, and more than happy, because that's also a change with this year's FAFSA. So for parents that are married filing separately, depending on how the student answers the questions on the FAFSA, because part of it depends on how they enter in information within the form itself. But as long as they share that, both parents, once they're identified through the information the student or a parent has input into the student section of the FAFSA form, both parents will individually get an email. And since they're filing separately, because it's the federal tax information that's being shared, each individual person will need to provide consent and approval for that FTI to be shared within the FAFSA form itself for processing.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
I did want to just jump in, Jason. I did put into the chat a link to our website that has the dates, times, and locations at your schools with the FAFSA nights that will have hands-on support through this process.
And I'm pretty sure I'm at most, if not all, of those events as well. Through, looks like Dr. Shave and Alyssa are on top of it. Thank you both so much. You're doing a great job keeping up with these questions.
One that's coming up a lot is if we file jointly, do we to both parents have their own FSA ID?
That's a good question. So for married filing jointly, only one parent should be identified as an additional contributor through the FAFSA form, and it'll be the parent that gets the email essentially, because both parents' information will be put into the form itself.
Hello.
Let me see. Is that Marina?
Yes, it is. A quick question for you. I typically separated for the last 2 years, but I typically give my daughter an extra day or so. There's nothing in legally contracted, but I claim her as the dependent on my taxes. I'm self-employed, so when I file last year's taxes in 2022, I'm in retail. They will be far better than they are this current year, because in the last few months of 2022, the last 2022's business was much lower. So when I claim this year, it will be a noticeable difference. So how do you deal with that if you know your income of 2022 of this year is going to be less than last year?
That's a good question. And not saying this is your situation, but my general recommendation for students and families is that if you're talking about an income difference of, $5,000 to $10,000 in that range, that's not going to make a substantial enough difference typically.
Yes,
for most FAFSAs for it to be a concern. But say there's let's say like 25-30% reduction in income or more, when you're talking about possibly tens of thousands of dollars in reduced income, that can make a significant difference, not only in the FAFSA and process of applying for financial aid itself, but in the lived reality of the students and families. Fill out the form with the income tax year that's being requested, but once the form is processed, you can file an appeal based on income reduction. There's technically also a process if your income has drastically improved from one year over another, but students and families tend not to be as eager to share that with financial aid offices when that does happen. But once the FAFSA is processed, you'll follow up, and this is the harder part because it requires more work on the back end at that point. But for any institution the student is considering attending, they'll need to file an appeal individually with each of those institutions, because unfortunately there's nothing that you can do about the tax year that's being requested. It's a federal requirement, both legally and statutorily.
Of course. So just to reiterate it one more time. So when I fill out the FAFSA, I will submit, is the taxes belonging to 2021? 2022 taxes.
That's right.
Okay. So 2023's, so I'll submit it with 2022. And then when I get, what did you say, what step do I get to then to appeal?
So this will be towards the end of this month once FAFSA has been processed. But so each institution does this a little bit differently. So there'll be a little more research that the student or you will have to do with each college or university they're interested in potentially attending.
Do 2 years at community college first with Nova, and then go on to the other 2 years, just financially.
Got it. So I would start with Nova's process to see whether or not they need to generate a financial aid award letter first to send that to the student, and then they can file for an appeal, or once the FAFSA submission summary has been received by Nova, then the student can start the appeal. I would check their financial aid website to see which direction they advise going in, and then just follow those directions at that point.
Okay, thank you so much. That was very helpful.
No problem. Then Imran has had their hand raised for a while.
I have a question. Yes.
So if
I'm sorry, Leon, hold on
Yeah.
one moment.
Sure.
I'm gonna go to Imran first.
Sure.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Is my question is, see, my daughter fill up all the FAFSA application,
Mhm.
and then they need a signature approval from parents.
Mhm.
So when I go to my account and I fill up all the details, and on the last second step where is the spouse details, so I fill up my wife detail, date of birth, and my email address there. When I'm trying to submit, it's no allow me to submit. It just say is an error, please come back later. But same as I did my son, he's doing in a college the last 3 years. So, but it was happened twice, but his everything is submit. But my daughter, I trying as many time is no let me do the signature process completion. So I just want to know how can I rectify this problem.
Got it. So there's a few different scenarios that are coming up, and I appreciate you asking this question because it reminded me that I needed to do this, or that I mentioned that I was going to do this at the beginning of our session this evening. But there's open issues that students and families are seeing during the soft launch, some of which may not be resolved during the soft launch period itself. And you might be in this situation. So it depends on what's going on. Sometimes it's a birth date or an email address that's been entered in incorrectly, and there's a mismatch in the data, and the form is telling you to go back, but it's not identifying exactly where the issue is at. So I would double check from what you put in, and then have your daughter double check what she put in to her FAFSA form as well. If you've logged out and logged back in, you have to re-add the country again into the FAFSA form. You won't get a prompt in the form telling you that the data is missing, but it'll give you an error if you try to submit and you have not added the country back in to the FAFSA form. And this will be specifically where, let me see, it'll be a blank country question. They don't tell me exactly where it's at in the form. If you've logged out, it will remove your signature too. So you have to re-sign the FAFSA form each time you log out and log back in. You have to re-sign. Let's see. You'll have, for parents or spouses without an FSA ID, you'll have an issue creating an account while the Social Security match is pending, which I already mentioned earlier. You'll need to give that process some time. For students or parents or other contributors without Social Security numbers, you'll need to work through the FSA ID process first and make sure you pass that identity check as a part of that process. It can be very quick, and it can also be very frustrating if you don't. There's a follow-up process that you have to complete with federal student aid to verify your identity if you fail the 1 to 4 identity questions that you're asked as a part of that process. Let's see. Parent without an SSN is not able to start the FAFSA form because they'll receive an error message. Currently, no workaround to that. So while the soft launch period is ongoing, it doesn't look like federal student aid is going to fix that yet. And this is for the situation where the parent without an SSN has started the FAFSA form for the student.
Right. So we just keep trying to a soft period, and if it's just accept, then after that.
And go back to make sure it's not something simple like the country missing in terms of demographic background information. It could be that simple too.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. Going back to those that have raised their hands. Go with Anna. You're first up on my screen. That's Anna Phillips. Not able to ask right now, Anna. That's okay. I'm going to go to Tracy and then I'll come back to you. Tracy Jenkins.
Hi, my question, I have two parts. When does the soft form launch end?
That's a great question, Tracy, and I wish I had a good answer for you. Federal student aid has not told us when the soft launch is going to end. My best guess is that it's going to probably be another week or so. I don't imagine it going much further than that because then they're running into issues with not being able to process FAFSAs that have been submitted by the end of January, which is their goal.
Okay. That's okay. The second question is, on December 19th, I applied for the FSA ID. I got an email that it went through, but then the next minute I got one that my FSA ID changed. If this wasn't me, to please change the password. So, but I, to this day, have not received the ID still. So I don't know if it's just on delay, maybe.
Got it. So that could happen if there is, I'm just guessing at a middle initial. Say your middle initial is A, and there's another Tracy A. Jenkins with your same birthday out there, and possibly a really close social security number match. It's possible right now that somebody else could have an FSA ID that's linked. Like your information could be crossing wires. What should help with that is if you go back to the Federal Student Aid website to log back in or sign back in for essentially a status update, you should be able to fix that with the multi-factor authentication process. So once you enter in that information, it should clear out any crossed wires at that point.
Yeah, I'm logged now. It texts me the code, but I don't see it on the website where it actually, it just says my name. It doesn't really share anything else to say where the ID. I thought maybe the ID would be on the dashboard or something, but I'm not.
Got it. So you're able to log in. You can see your dashboard. You're good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Don't have the ID, but I need that, right? I need to know what the ID is.
I'm trying to remember exactly where to go on the site to find your ID, because you're right, it's not as straightforward as it could be. I am blanking on that off the top of my head, though. I'm not sure, Tracy.
That's okay. I'll keep fishing. Thank you.
And then next I'll go to Malu.
Good evening, everybody. I have 3 questions. They're very quick. The first question is, are we only supposed to fill out what is required? Because just like the CSS profile, it's got 210 questions. I was told by my tax guy, only fill out the questions based on your tax documents, your W-2s, and your 1099s and whatever else we have. The required part, you do not need to fill out that. So my question is, would FAFSA be the same thing, that you're only going to fill up the one that is required and not to worry about the others that is not required?
That's a great question, Malu. So this is the part of most of my presentations or workshops where I shared that I'm not an accountant. So I would lean on your accountant's advice for those specific questions in this process. And what I will say is that whatever questions are being asked of the student and or parent / other contributors are the questions that should be answered. And that's kind of the extent of what I can give you from there. It's if there's something very particular you're worried about in terms of income or assets, ask your accountant.
Well, the thing is, like I said, that's the one thing that I do not want to come across. It's like I do not want it to come across that I'm hiding something and all that. But then my tax guy said, no, based on again, a part of the question is, will our tax guy have access to the form? Because last year when I started the process of applying for colleges, I was talking to my tax guy. I said, I think I need to file my taxes earlier this year so that I can file the FAFSA. And she gave me a form from last year and she goes, this is what you need for FAFSA. I said, it's one piece of paper and it's very short. And I go, wait, the old FAFSA is 100 questions. And she goes, Malu, you do not need to worry about the questions that are not required, because this is what he said. you have filed taxes and you're not hiding anything. Your taxes are pretty straightforward. This is the only thing that you need. So my question now would be, my second question is, will he be able to have access to my FAFSA? Because he actually told me, tell me when it's going to launch and let me know, ask the people who are doing the walkthrough, when will the tax people have access to it so that you can fill up the form very accurately and not come across as hiding anything. So I told my tax guy, because I did a FAFSA walkthrough before, and instead of 100 questions, it's now just 50 questions. And every time, basically, they don't really have, I do not know, but access to the directly to the taxes unless we give a go ahead. So my tax guy said, I'm not seeing it from the software at this point. So you might want to ask the FAFSA people if we will eventually be able to see it. And my third question attached to that is, when will be the deadline to submit it? Because one of the schools that my daughter is applying to, they're very specific. Deadline for submission of FAFSA is January 15. And I'm like, holy moly, we don't even know what's going on with it. So, and every time I go to the FAFSA link, it's crashing. So what should I do?
Those are all great questions. I would say for a third party access to the FAFSA information, especially with the changes that have been made with the 24-25 FAFSA, it's going to be up to the individual parent and or student and what they're willing to share. Like if you email your accountant your FAFSA submission summary, once you receive that, it's entirely up to you. I've had students and families that have met with their accountants and have essentially been sitting there on a laptop as they've been working through the FAFSA, answering questions based on the accountant's advice. So it really depends on how much physical time you're willing to spend with somebody, like in person, to share information, because that's really the extent of what you can share at this point.
Okay. Yeah. So
and it's up to you.
So what you're saying is, recap. It's better for me to defer to my tax guy or my accountant if he says that we only worry about the questions that say required, because just like with the CSS, it's indicated there required, and then the others that are not required. And my tax guy said, don't worry about the ones that are required. And you said defer to the accountant because
wherever you have any questions related to your finances, just because it's every individual family is going to be different when it comes to that. And I'm not an accountant, so I can't give financial advice.
Yeah, because like I said, I didn't even ask me for access to the FAFSA last year. He just said, okay, you don't need to fill out anything. This is your form. And I'm like, wait, it's just one page. That's all you have, because your taxes are very straightforward. So I said, okay. So now my question is, can I submit that? Because if we're using our taxes for 2022, that's what the other thing he asked me. Ask the FAFSA people, if you are using your taxes for 2022, can you just submit an existing form that your tax guy submitted? He said, it's there, it's attached to your taxes. So can we use the ones that is from the old form, or no?
Unfortunately not. That's one of the changes too. So what will happen during the process of filling out the FAFSA form, both for the student and then for any parent that's identified as a contributor for the form, as you work through the process of filling out your individual section, you'll be providing consent and approval for the IRS to transmit that federal tax information that I was mentioning earlier, your FTI, directly into the FAFSA form. That information is encrypted, so even the individual providing approval and consent won't see the information being put in. Then one of the questions that I've gotten as a result of that is, if I can't see the information, how do I verify that it's accurate? Unfortunately, you have to wait until the FAFSA has been processed, and then follow up with institutions. Financial aid administrator can pull up the ISER, which is the individual record for a student at that point, and confirm information in terms of what's been submitted. That's one of the requirements of the IRS to do this direct data transfer, which is different than what was in place in previous years. Was that each individual contributor, and a contributor can be a student, it can be a parent, it can be the step parent if the student has gotten 51% or more of their financial support from as remarried between now and 2022 tax year. As long as all of those contributors, whoever identified as a contributor, they'll be providing consent approval for that FTI to be transferred directly over. So there's no form that you'll get from your accountant that will be held in place of that. It's they're really leaning into this direct transfer of information from the IRS. But that's a great question. And then your third question was about priority deadlines. I am really surprised to hear a January 15th priority deadline is still out there.
Me too, because I got the email and I'm like, wait, it's only soft launch.
Right.
There's too many kinks in the system. Why are they saying January 15?
Right. I would ask that institution first, double check the email just to make sure it didn't say the application for admission needed to be submitted by January 15th. But if they are saying the FAFSA,
they are FAFSA. I said I read it and reread it, and it said our deadline for FAFSA is January 15. And I'm like, okay, that is.
I would follow up with that institution to make sure that that wasn't an error on their end, because they won't receive information. So the ICERs that I mentioned earlier, they won't receive that from federal student aid until the earliest end of this month, maybe beginning of February, depending on filing status at that point. So I would check with the institution just to make sure that they didn't meet February 15th instead of January 15th. Because I'm really surprised to hear that would be a party deadline. That may have been, previous years when the FAFSA was available October 1st. Certainly.
I'm hoping they meant June 15, not January 15.
Hopefully so. But yes, please follow up with the institution and ask them directly.
Thank you. Those are my 3 questions.
I just want to, for the group, I do want to remind you all that this is being recorded. And so I want to just remind you, if there are some very personal information or questions that you have, to be mindful that we are recording this, and that also at your high schools, there are going to be hands-on FAFSA sessions that will not be recorded. So I just, again, for the good of the group and for your privacy and confidentiality, wanting to just reiterate, when you're asking questions, please keep them general. And as Jason has said, he is not a tax advisor. And so any information regarding how you fill out your tax forms or any of that information is, again, for you to contact your tax advisor or your accountant. This session is to help provide you information with how to complete the FAFSA form. And again, just wanted to be respectful of your personal information as we are having this conversation.
Jason, also, we're getting some questions about, as a parent, I recently went to college and I have an FSA ID. Do I use that same FSA ID when I'm doing the FAFSA with my child?
Great question. So yes, because your FSA ID is tied to your name and your social security number very specifically, you can only ever have one. So if you've just recently finished college or even are still in college yourself pursuing post-secondary education, you use your same FSA ID for your own individual FAFSA form, but then for any of your children or for your child as they work through the process, you'll be using that same FSA ID in that process as well. I'll share the site again with where to create your FSA ID because I saw that. I know that was earlier. I've been seeing some other questions pop up. I'm not going to be able to get to everybody that directly messaged me with questions, but what I will say is towards the end of the presentation, I will share out my contact information. And if you have individual questions that you want to ask that you didn't get a chance to ask me this evening, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email. If I get a lot of emails, one, I won't work through them this evening. It'll take me until tomorrow morning to start getting through those. But two, I just want to reiterate that if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email and I will get back with you and get you an answer. But then especially if you're going to any of the Prince William County school FAFSA nights over the next month-ish or so, it's more likely than not that I'll be there. And with the soft launch period, again, we don't know when it will end, but FAFSAs won't be processed. So normally when a FAFSA is submitted, a student will get an email saying, hey, we received your FAFSA, and you'll still get that email. But what you won't get access to is the FAFSA submission summary until closer to the end of this month. And that's an irregular time schedule if you're submitting, say, today, for example, to have the FAFSA submission summary be that far out. It used to be called a student aid report, but the information during the soft launch is going to be held. So if the student and parent or parents as contributors all add in their information, provide consent and approval for FTI either to be shared, or if the student wasn't working in 2022, to share that there's no FTI to report. You still have to provide consent and approval for that to be documented and verified by the IRS. That information will be held essentially in a queue. So your information will be pending. So once the soft launch period concludes, federal student aid will move all of those essentially pending FAFSA forms into processing status, and they'll work through processing those FAFSA forms that have been submitted and completed, and they'll get FAFSA submission summaries out closer to the end of this month. So even if you work through everything today, it'll take some time for information to get back to you. And then that information won't be released to any college or university until closer to the end of this month, beginning of February, depending on when you ultimately complete the form itself. Seeing a lot of questions about for parents that have been identified without a social security number as needing to contribute to the form that is causing an error in the FAFSA during the soft launch. There's no fix to it, unfortunately. So if you're seeing that very specific error message as you're working through your FAFSA form, wait until the soft launch ends. Federal student aid is aware that it's an issue. Give them time to fix the bug because they know it's a problem. I know that's not ideal because that means waiting to complete your FAFSA. But from what they're saying online, they know it's an issue, but they're just not going to fix it during the soft launch. So you have to wait for anyone in that situation. Seniors and the for anybody that's for this year, the FAFSA was asking you to identify who's provided 51% or more of the financial support in the 12 months prior to today. So from today to January 10th of 2023, who's providing the most financial support for you? If it's your mom and mom is remarried to stepdad, stepdad will be identified as a contributor. Vice versa, if it's your dad and he's remarried and you now have a stepmom, and they may be identified as a contributor, and then the other biological parent may not be identified in this process. So it depends on when everything happened and who provided 51% or more of the financial support. There's no real way, honestly, for federal student aid to verify that. So families are being left up to you all to decide amongst yourselves where that line is drawn, if that makes sense. Questions? I appreciate you all sharing. Not every chat is this active. I apologize, I'm not able to keep up. So I will share that as I read through.
Yeah, Jason, we're taking care of the chat. If there's Anita, I don't know if you're seeing any other themes. I think we've kind of brought up the main.
Yeah, I think the one I'm seeing now is for parents if they already have a child in college and they've done and they have a FAFSA, they have an FSA ID already, but now this is a new form and they have an additional child. Do they use the same FSA ID number?
Yep, same FSA ID. As long you can only ever have one. Do M. Hashir?
Yes. Hello, good evening. I have two brief questions. First one is the FAFSA first come, first serve application?
That's a good question. For some things, possibly. So there are some federal and state grants that, depending on the need of the student and the student aid index, will essentially operate as first come, first serve. And once those funds are exhausted, they're done for that academic year. But what I will say is, because of the soft launch and the very unique nature of this year's FAFSA, I would not rush through this application. If you have concerns or questions, or you want to wait for your school's FAFSA night, there's plenty of time for the application to still be processed. And the federal and state deadlines for grant aid are really far out from now. It's only the institutional deadlines that you really need to pay attention to right now.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, I'm the one who's doing the FAFSA application. My parents are both with me right now. When I was doing my application, I encountered an error while sending an invite to my parent. I was thinking of abandoning the application because I have tried for like past 2 weeks and it's not helping with anything. And I was thinking if I can abandon the application and start a new one, will it be helpful or not?
It probably won't be helpful because you'll more than likely run into the same issue. So without knowing more about your individual situation, I'd ask you honestly to send me an email and possibly some screenshots so I can help you troubleshoot what's going on. Because it could be for a student with non-citizen parents, or maybe a parent who lived in another country in the year or the time frame they were talking about. They just recently came here, or maybe a parent that still lives abroad. But I know you said both your parents are with you. It could be a whole bunch of a number of things that are causing the error, and it could be a simple question that needs to be answered, or an answer that needs to be adjusted to more accurately reflect what's going on. And I would hate for you to go back through. You can't technically, you can start over, but it's not. I'd rather answer the error or fix the error, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. And where can I find your email so I can email you?
I'll drop my email into the chat.
Okay.
Like I mentioned, I may be able to answer some emails this evening, but I will definitely get back to you all by tomorrow.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
I'm gonna go to Shelby next. Which question, Shelby?
Hello. Sorry, I had to take myself off of mute.
No problem.
First, I wanted to address the question of assets and sort of how we declare those. I understand, when it asks me my questions, it's somewhat on your honor to declare the right accounts as far as, bank accounts or, investments. Can you address sort of how are those verified? Like when we give permission for them to pull our tax information from the IRS, are we also giving them permission to contact the banks and verify our account balances? Or is that done at a later process, a second step? Like, because they can't just be taking everybody on their honor. Nobody's that trusting.
That's a good question. So in the question very specifically that you're talking about, it's it could be, is it the like assets as of today, checking, savings, any cash on hand?
Correct.
Okay. So technically you are kind of on your honor about that. And the reason is because as of today, what are these available balances kind of thing. If if there were serious concerns, there could potentially be some additional verification that's requested. You could be identified for verification through the process with federal student aid or with an individual institution. But some of these questions are on the individual to be as truthful as possible.
Okay.
There are some checks, but it's not something where it's like, I know that if you don't answer this question correctly, that this is what will result down the road.
Okay.
Like there's a possibility, but it depends on who we're talking about reviewing the form and at what stage, whether it's after submission or institutional review at that point.
Okay. And can you also address for 529s? I understand. So we hold a 529 in our name with my student as the beneficiary, but one of his grandparents also started a 529 that they hold in their name. We have never seen a statement or put any money in it or anything. It's completely separate from us. The grandparent started it there, and my student is also listed as the beneficiary. I've been told not to include that when I list my assets because it's not my asset. Like,
right,
is that true?
Right, because it won't factor into the equation until there's a disbursement, and even that's true on your end. So until there's an actual disbursement from the 529 to pay towards post-secondary expenses, it's something that like it'll be reported, quote unquote, on the FAFSA, but it's not factoring in at that point to the aid calculation. It's only once a disbursement happens. Like the value is seen essentially. But for anything under a grandparent's name, that won't be captured until a disbursement happens. So if something, say they don't tap into the account or you all don't tap into those funds until spring semester sophomore year, that might not appear on a FAFSA until senior year if the student's going into graduate school. So it's 2 years delayed at that point.
Okay, so it would ultimately be reported as income in whatever year we use it.
As an asset, not income, but yes.
Okay. Okay.
Like you'll be doing some initial reporting on your end with the 529, but that is a difference from last year to this year and how the 529 information is being reported.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. And so if and also the as of today thing. So if I'm realizing as I'm looking at the information they're requesting that it would probably be to my benefit to move ownership of some accounts around. Like, are they going to be like, oh, wait a minute, no, last week you held this account, so you have to declare it? Like, is there a waiting period? Like sometimes they'll say, oh, if you, like when you're filing for a mortgage, they look at assets that you've had, you have to have them like 90 days or so or something like that before they count. Is there a time limit on that?
That is a great question for your accountant. That is an accountant question.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Because I'm realizing they're asking some questions I didn't realize they were going to ask.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I think that was it for me. Oh, custodial accounts. How do if they're held by the student versus held by the parent, like how do we report that? Do I report that as my student's income or as my asset?
It depends on who it's under. And that's one, I'd get clarification from your accountant.
Okay.
Just to make sure.
All right.
And then go based off their answers.
Okay, we'll do.
And I'm recognizing now that we are at 7:00. And I apologize, especially for those that have had your hands up for a while, because we're not going to be able to get to your questions. But I will share my email address and contact information again as we wrap up our presentation. Please send me an email. I will follow up with you. Again, can't promise this evening, but I'll get back to you by tomorrow with my best answer to your questions. So thank you all so much. I don't know if anyone else from Prince William County staff wanted to drop back in.
Yes, I wanted to thank you again, Jason, for your time, for helping to answer these questions. And again, Alyssa has dropped in the link for you all to also reach out to attend one of the hands-on sessions at your high school. The link has the website with the different dates. There are a couple of schools that do have a registration requirement. However, you are welcome to attend any of those hands-on sessions at any of our participating high schools so that you will be able to get additional questions answered and get support as you are completing this FAFSA form.
I have placed the link also for the survey for tonight. So if you could fill out that survey link, it will also be included in a resource email for you. But if you could fill that out, we would appreciate it.
Heather, where would the recording be? A family was asking.
I will have to check with Miss Boyd if she will either post the recording or send it out in the email. We may need to review the recording for personal information that was included tonight because we don't want to release anybody's personal information.
Thank you all for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful evening. Stay safe and warm. And we look forward to seeing you at our hands-on sessions at our schools. Thank you so much.